Remember burning CDs?
Right.
Like waiting for that download bar to, finally get across the screen. And then that sigh of relief when it was finally done, only to realize, oh yeah, got to do it again for every single copy.
Oh, I know, right? Feels like a lifetime ago.
It really does.
But that nostalgia, that's kind of why we're doing this deep dive, right? Because behind all those discs, there's this whole world of manufacturing. And at the heart of it is this role, optical disc molding machine operator.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's one of those jobs that just sounds kind of deceptively simple at first.
Right.
Like you just picture someone pushing buttons all day.
Yeah.
But we're going to unpack that and figure out why this role is actually way more interesting and frankly more important than it first seems. And luckily, we've got a ton of info from RoleCatcher. We've got career guides, interview insights.
It works.
Yeah, pretty
Yep.
much.
And you know what's really fascinating about this is that this isn't just about like this bygone era of CDs and DVDs, right? The skills that these operators have, they're surprisingly relevant across a bunch of industries.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it. First things first, what do these operators actually do?
RoleCatcher breaks down this whole molding process, and it's pretty intricate. So, like, imagine tiny polycarbonate pellets. They're like these little plastic beads, and they get melted down at super high temperatures.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really cool. So the machines take that molten plastic and they inject it into molds, but it's not just about shaping it. They're actually embedding the information that makes the discs readable.
Whoa. So it's like they're translating digital code into like a physical form.
Exactly.
Those little grooves and pits that like our CD players or DVD players used to read.
Yeah.
Wild. Okay, so all thanks to these machines and, of course, the people who operate them, precisely. And the level of precision required for this it's mind-blowing. We're not even talking millimeters here. We're talking microns. Like a human hair is about 70 microns thick. These machines are working with tolerances way smaller than that.
Wow. We talk about attention to detail. So this isn't just pushing buttons. Clearly, these operators need some serious technical, skills. So what does RoleCatcher say about that, about the specific skills involved?
They have a whole section on functions and core abilities.
Okay.
And three key skills really kind of jump out at you. One is operations monitoring. Then there's operation and control, and of course, mechanical knowledge. It's a real blend of like high tech and hands-on expertise.
Okay, so break those down for me. And of course, for our listener who's probably just as intrigued by all of this as we are.
Okay, so let's start with operations monitoring. Think of it like being the machine's own like personal physician. You're constantly checking its vital signs. That means temperature gauges, pressure readings, all of it.
Got it. Yeah. So making sure everything's running smoothly, no meltdowns allowed, literally. Okay, what about operation and control?
So that's where you're actually at the helm, right? You're managing the equipment, you're adjusting settings, you're basically making sure the whole process runs flawlessly from like start to finish. It's this high stakes game of keeping everything in perfect balance.
I can imagine. And that's where that mechanical knowledge comes in.
Right.
Understanding how all the cogs in the machine, so to speak, all work together.
Absolutely. Operators need to be able to troubleshoot problems, do basic maintenance, even collaborate with engineers to like fine tune the process. It's about understanding not just what the machine does, but why it does it. It really is. And that's kind of what makes this role so interesting.
Why?
It's that blend of like having the technical know-how, but also that problem solving element. It's more than just a factory job. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
But like any career, it comes with its own, set of pros and cons.
For sure. So, okay, let's talk about what makes this career path appealing, what's exciting about it, but also let's address those challenges, what you might encounter along the way.
Yeah.
And RoleCatcher actually does a great job of diving into this. They even frame it as a direct question. They say, so is this the right career for you?
I love that.
Yeah.
It makes you think, is this right for me? Which is important, right? When you're thinking about a career.
100%. So starting with the plus side, the good stuff, RoleCatcher highlights high demand as a major pro.
Yeah.
Apparently these skilled optical disc molding machine operators, they're in high demand. And they even mentioned that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they project something like a 10% growth in these types of specialized manufacturing roles.
Wow.
Over the next decade, which is outpacing a lot of other occupations.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's like a big deal for job security if you're, looking to get into this field.
Totally. And it's not just about getting a job. It sounds like there's there's real potential for, growth, like within the field.
Yeah, yeah, climbing that ladder.
I like that. I like the sound of that.
And RoleCatcher, they actually lay out a pretty clear path. There are three distinct career stages: entry level, junior operator, and senior operator.
Okay, so walk us through that. Like, what do those stages actually look like? What are we talking about responsibility-wise?
So at the entry level, you're really just learning the ropes, right? You're operating a single machine, you're mastering the process, getting comfortable with like basic troubleshooting. It's like, think of it like mastering the art of like a perfectly poured cup of coffee, but on an industrial scale.
Okay, you've piqued my interest. I like that analogy. All right, so what about the junior operator level?
So that's where you start to like, step up your game a little bit, right? You might be setting up machines for specific production runs. You might be handling like more in-depth quality control. You might even be training new recruits, the eager folks who are just starting out. Think of it like you're the barista trainer now.
I love it. Okay.
So you're sharing that expertise. You're making sure those lattes are consistently perfect.
I'm seeing a theme here. Okay. Last level, senior operator. What does it take to reach like the top of the coffee, or should I say optical disc world?
Now you're like the master roaster, right? You're overseeing this whole team of operators, multiple machines probably. You're doing those high-level quality audits, maybe even collaborating with engineers to like optimize the entire process.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like there's like a lot of room for growth in this role. You can go from mastering those technical skills to like eventually, stepping into leadership, maybe even process improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. You're not just stuck in a rut. There's a real path for, advancement if you're into that sort of thing. But, not to sugarcoat it or anything, like any job, it has its downsides.
Yeah.
And role catchers like very upfront about this. They talk about how it's physically demanding, you're on your feet a lot, there's potential for, repetitive motions.
Yeah, I mean it's important to be realistic about those aspects of any job, right?
Absolutely. And they also mention the possibility of like eye strain. You're constantly monitoring these machines and they are intricate.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about having like a balanced perspective, I guess, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
weighing the challenges against, the opportunities and deciding if it's the right fit for you.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of being prepared, what I thought was cool is that RoleCatcher, they don't just like describe the job. They actually include this whole section on like potential interview questions,
Oh, that's fun.
which I thought was a really, really nice touch.
I like that. Well, so we've covered, kind of the day-to-day of what this role looks like. So let's jump into some of those like interview insights.
Mhm.
Curious to see, what they came up with. So like what kind of questions are we talking about here? Give us the inside scoop so our listeners can like ace that interview.
Yeah, so instead of those typical like, tell me about your experience kind of questions, RoleCatcher they get really specific.
Oh.
One that stood out to me was, imagine a new operator, right? And they're really struggling to keep the dist quality consistent. How would you guide them through troubleshooting that?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Because it's not just about what you would do, right?
Right.
It's about how you would like explain it and almost like mentor someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Which kind of speaks to those like leadership qualities we were talking about.
Exactly. It really tests those problem-solving skills, your communication skills, even like, can you stay patient under pressure?
Yeah. It's like a subtle but very effective way to see if someone's really cut out for like this line of work.
Mm.
Because it's not enough to just, know the stuff, the technical stuff. You got to have those people skills.
100%. And it highlights something, that's really crucial about this career path, the potential for growth. It's not just about, the technical expertise. It can really go beyond that. You can move up into positions where you're training, managing, even innovating.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And speaking of innovation, it makes me think about like the future of this role. We're seeing automation pretty much everywhere we look these days. So what does that mean for the optical disc molding machine operator?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It really is.
And honestly, it's something that even RoleCatcher, like, they grapple with a bit.
Yeah.
They have this whole section where they're, like, exploring the impact of automation on, manufacturing jobs.
Interesting. So what's their take? Like, are we going to see robots pumping out CDs and DVDs anytime soon?
Well, they don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
But they do bring up some really, like, thought-provoking points.
Okay.
Like, while automation is great for those repetitive tasks, They suggest that human oversight could actually become even more important in the future.
Oh, interesting. So it's not like, humans versus robots. It's more like, how do they work together?
Exactly, exactly. They make the argument that humans, we bring something to the table you just can't replace. That adaptability, that problem solving, like gut feeling that something's off, even if the machine isn't like, flashing a warning sign.
Right. It's like that old saying, you can't automate a feeling. Like there's just some level of like intuition and creative problem solving that that's still very human.
Exactly. And in an industry where it's all about like precision and quality control, that human element, that might be, what makes or breaks a company.
Totally. So for someone who's, maybe thinking about this career path, it's not just about learning to like run a machine.
Mm.
It's almost like becoming a master of your craft,
Yeah.
constantly learning, adapting, and really, really honing those skills that make you valuable, uniquely valuable.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one, training the robots to make those perfectly molded discs.
Yeah, that's a future I can get behind. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, I would say, into the world of optical desk molding machine operators. We explored what they do, the skills they need, even what the future might hold.
Yeah, it's like this hidden world that has like a surprising amount of depth and opportunity, honestly.
For sure. So for our listeners out there, if any of this has, sparked your interest and you want to dive in a little deeper, we highly recommend checking out those RoleCatcher resources. We'll link those in the show notes.
They really do have a ton of great info. Everything from those career guides we mentioned to interview tips, really, really helpful stuff to help you, navigate this field, this exciting, ever-evolving field.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just the beginning of your deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring those hidden corners of the professional world because you never know what you might discover.